maybe we can apply the same approach as last time. So previously, we had a list of English words that we wanted to store in a certain sequence from 1 through 10. And now we have a list of 10 Miwok words that we want to store. And maybe we should store them in an array list as well. So that seems like it will work out well. Now we just need to make sure that the array adapter constructor allows us to pass in two lists. So one list for the English words and one list for the Miwok words. So here we are in the numbers activity. And so let's take a step back and think about our strategy. So we want to pass in our new layout into the array adapter. So instead of android.r.layout.simple_list item 1, I'm just going to replace it with the layout that we created, the list item layout. So this third input is wrong. So we're passing in words, but the words list is only composed of English words, and we want to pass in the corresponding Miwok words as well, so that each list item displays both translations. So let's go back to the documentation for the array adapter and go down to the public constructor section. And again, we see that these are ways to create a new array adapter. So we've been using the second to last constructor, where we pass in a context, which refers to the numbers activity, the layout file, and the list of objects. But it doesn't look like there's another constructor here that has two lists as the input. This one only takes in one list. And so that's the same with this constructor as well. It only takes in one list as its last input. So remember we talked about generics? So the data types of the object is marked as T, but this is just a placeholder that you can substitute in any other object data type. So we're currently replacing T with a string data type, and so we're passing in an array list of strings to the array adapter. So the constructor here above requires an array of objects, and T here is a placeholder for any object data type that you want. Well, so far we've been unlucky. We can't find a constructor that allows us to pass in two lists to create an array adapter. But we can take advantage of the fact that array adapter can take in a list of any type of object. So how about instead of passing in a list of strings, we create our own object type. So a word object. Now we can define our own word class and create word objects from it. And then we can create a whole list of word objects. Remember from the last course that a class definition contains both state and methods. In the upcoming quiz, I'm going to ask you how we should define a word class. What state and methods should it contain? So before we jump into the word class, I'm going to show you some other apps that have used custom classes. So here's a screenshot from a popular flight booking app called Kayak. So a user selects the departing and arriving cities and the date, and the app presents a list of potential options. Notice that the information is presented in a list view, and each list item has a flight, and the information is always presented in the same pattern. Kayak has likely created a custom flight class, and each of these list items represents information about a single flight object from that class. So using our box analogy, we can represent each of these flight objects as a big box that holds state. So state in this case is made up of different fields such as airline, departure time, arrival time, cost, and length of flight. Now we can also add methods to this class, and other parts of the app can call on these methods. So all this together is called encapsulation, because all the logic is being encapsulated or combined into this class. Now other parts of the travel app can know that a flight object exists and that it's possible to call these methods, such as cancel, on that object. But outside callers don't need to worry about the internal details of how these methods actually work. The caller just knows the contract, that they can expect the flight to be canceled when the method is called. They could care less about how it's actually accomplished under the hood. So this concept is called abstracting away the details of what goes inside the class. Now let's take a look at another example. Here's a music app called SoundCloud that allows users to save their favorite music tracks in a playlist. The tracks are displayed in a list, and each track is a list item displaying the same information. So we have album name, album art, song title, song length, number of listens, and all of this is always presented in the same pattern. So all the information can be stored as fields in a state of a custom song class. In addition to the states, we can encapsulate methods into this class as well. So this song object could have different methods such as get song title or get album name. So similar to the flight class, here we're abstracting away the details of the class, so outside callers can use these methods without knowing the details of them. So as you can tell from these examples, there are advantages to encapsulating or grouping information into the classes that you've defined. So now it's your turn to think about the problem at hand. I want you to show the English and Miwok words in the list. And how can you model that data? Now this is a data structure question because you have to decide how to structure the data in your app. If all the information is stored as individual global variables in the app, it would become really hard to manage. Instead, we want to organize the data so it's easier to retrieve and display onto the screen. So you've already started doing this, being familiar with data structures. For example, putting the list of English words in an array or array list was an example of picking a data structure to organize the information better in a sequential list. Now we're going to take it one step further and create our own data structure for words, because the built-in solutions for Java just aren't sufficient for our needs. So we're going to give you a hint that you should create a word class, but we're going to leave it up to you to determine what state and methods it should contain.